All right, let's get started. Somebody mentioned that we have a lot to cover, and I tend to cheat, so we're going to start with chapter 50, verse 12. And so his sons did for him as he commanded them, for his sons carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave in the field of Machpelah, opposite Mamre, which Abraham had bought along with the field as the burial site from Ephron the Hittite. And after he had buried his father, Joseph returned to Egypt, and his brothers all had gone up with him. So we finished with Jacob. Now let's go back where we were, and we're finishing up the confrontation between Laban and Jacob. And so essentially, there was a whole dispute over stealing the idols. And Rachel hides them and lies to her father. And so, but anyway, they now make a covenant. Verse 43 of chapter 31. Laban said to Jacob, "Daughters are my daughters, and children are my grandchildren, and flocks are my flocks, and everything you see is mine. But what can I do this day to these daughters of mine and these children to whom they have given birth? So now come and let us make a covenant. It shall be a witness between you and me." So now they've basically come to a resolution. God has warned Laban, don't really confront Jacob. And so he's taken that, I think, to heart. And so they gather stones, and it's interesting. There's two different words here. Laban called the stones they gathered Jegar Sadareth, and then Jacob called it Gilead. It means the same thing. All it really means is a heap of stones, or a witness heap. And so what they've done is they've created this that is going to be, we've come into an agreement with one another, we've made this covenant, and this stone is a witness, this pile of stones.
I understood that Mizpah meant like a watchstone, like...
Well, I'm talking Gilead.
Yeah.
And Mizpah is watch.
Like two names.
Yeah. And at Mizpah, which is a watchtower or a lookout, is Mizpah. May the Lord keep watch between you and me. And so, so basically they've got a pile of stones, and then this is named watchtower, or may the Lord watch over us. So in verse 54, and then Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain and called his relatives early in the morning. Laban got up, kissed his grandchildren and his daughters, and blessed them, and Laban departed, returned to his place. So we've got them basically parting on amicable terms at this point with an agreement. Jacob's not going to go back and bother Laban or his family, and Laban is going to leave Jacob and all his daughters and grandchildren and everyone along. They're not going to basically traverse those things. Now, in chapter 32, Jacob went on his way, and the angel of God met him. And when he saw them, Jacob said, "This is God's camp." So he named the place Mahanaim, which means literally two camps. So Jacob's made his camp, and then he's realized God's camp is here also. So he names that place. Then Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, in the country of Edom, and commanded them, saying, "This is what you shall say to my lord Esau. Your servant Jacob says the following: I have resided with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen, donkey, flocks, male and female servants, and I have sent messengers to tell my lord, so that I may find favor in your sight." So he starts with just this message that goes out. Now, who is Esau carrying with him? It's got to be intimidating. 400 men is Esau is coming out with 400 men to greet his brother. And so at this point, Jacob has no idea what his brother's response is going to be. We came to your brother Esau, and furthermore, he's coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and divided people who were with him and the flocks and herds and camels into two companies. Esau comes to one company and attacks it, the other company will escape. So he's already making provisions for the very real possibility that there's going to be hostility. That, his brother's not going to be in a forgiving mood.
It's been 21 years?
What?
21 years?
At least 20 years. He keeps referencing 14 and 6, 7, 7, and 6 when he's talking to Laban. So it's at least 20 years that he's been gone. And Jacob said, verse 9, God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your relatives, and I will make you prosper. I am unworthy of all the favor that you have, of all the faithfulness which you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed the Jordan, and now I have become two companies. Save me, please, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. For I fear him, that he would come and attack me, and the mothers with the children. For you said, now he harkens back to God's promise, I will assuredly make you prosper and make your descendants as the sand of the sea, which is too great to be counted. So as he's petitioning God in this circumstance, he's referencing back to the promise of, okay, you're going to have many descendants, therefore at least his children will be preserved in this circumstance, he hopes. So he basically decides to divide his current flocks and send gifts off to his brother in waves. And so he ends up sending 550 animals altogether in these waves. And so he starts with 200 female goats and 20 male goats, and then 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milking camels and the colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls and 20 female donkeys, 10 male donkeys. So he places them in the care of his servants and sends them ahead of him. And each time they encountered Esau, they're to say, when my brother Esau meets you and asks you, saying, to whom do you belong and where are you going? And to whom do these animals in front of you belong? Then you shall say, these belong to your servant Jacob. It is a gift sent to my lord Esau, and behold, he is behind us. Then he commanded also the second and third and all those who followed the flock, saying, in the same way you shall speak to Esau. So he's paving the way with these gifts. And it's a pretty elaborate, bit of wealth that he's offering forth. 24, Jacob was left alone. So basically that night he took his two wives as female slaves, verse 22, and his 11 children and crossed the shallow place of Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, and he sent them across, and he sent whatever he had. Then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he was not prevailing against him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip dislocated while he wrestled with him. Then he said, let me go, for dawn is breaking. But he said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. So he said, what is your name? And he said, Jacob. And then he said, your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, which literally means one who wrestles or struggles with God. So, for you have contended with God, with men, and have prevailed. And Jacob asked him, please tell me your name. But he said, why is it you ask my name? And he blessed him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, which is face of God. he said, "For I have seen God face to face, yet my life has been spared." Now the sun rose upon him, and he crossed over Peniel, and he was limping on his hip. Therefore, to this day, the sons of Israel do not eat the tendon of the hip, which is on the socket of the hip, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hitch. And so you've got this tradition that came forth as a result of this that carried through with the nation of Israel. Verse 33, or chapter 33, Jacob raised his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau was coming, and 400 men with him. So he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the two slave women. He put the slave women and their children in front, Leah and her children next, and Rachel and Joseph last. But he himself passed on ahead of them and bowed down to the ground 7 times until he came near his brother. So as he's approaching, he's bowing down and literally, offering some sort of,
And limping.
Yes, and limping after his struggle.
There's little hard feelings for the women who had to go ahead of Rachel. And said,
That's-
so we're going to be wiped out first?
It's
Yep.
quite obvious what Jacob's
Who's the favorite?
continual preference was with regard to his wives, as it were.
Because an angel or who was wrestling with him, why would he not know it was Jacob? He kept saying, "What is your name? What is your name?"
He probably
Maybe
did
more like
know.
a where art thou?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would think he did know, but he was going to rename him.
Oh, okay.
And the name is reiterated later on as we get further into the thing. God actually calls him Israel.
I've heard other times that he's making him say his name because when he first got his blessings, he didn't say his name. He said somebody else's name, Esau.
Okay. Yeah.
That too.
So,
The father-
hey, I'm going to be honest this time.
What is your name? I'm not Esau. Then Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. So we've got a happy ending here. They're going to coexist. They're going to cooperate. Ultimately, they bury their father, Isaac, together. And so they find a way for them to camp, and with relatively large, Esau declares he's prospered. He doesn't need these 550 animals. He's prospered. Jacob, you keep your animals. And they basically debate a little bit about who should keep the animals. But they're going to live in close proximity with one another and get along in the land of promise. So,
Well, from what Jacob said, he's like, "Oh, no, you go on ahead. We got kids." And I'm limping. I don't think Jacob was still sold on the fact that Esau wasn't going to repay him.
okay, well, it may be.
So,
But each of the wives then come forward and bow down, and Leah likewise, and Rachel bowed down, and he said, "What do you mean by all this company that I've met? To find favor in the sight of my Lord. But Esau, I have plenty, brother. Let what you have be your own." So there's a debate going on there. We'll jump to
and Esau tried to leave some of his men with Jacob in verse.
yes.
Yeah, and Jacob's like, "Oh, no.
That's not necessary.
No.
I've made it this far.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's at least and oftentimes you'll have what's called a healthy tension in relationships, where you both know that there's been something wrong, and you both know that there's some restitution required, but it just creates this little bit of tension. And it's like, okay, we're going to acknowledge that reality and we're going to go on, even though there is that. If we jump to chapter 34, we don't even want to look at that. That's kind of depressing. 35, and God said to Jacob, arise and go to Bethel. Bethel is the house of El, or house of God, and live there, and make an altar there to God, who appeared to you when you fled from your brother Esau. So Jacob said to his household and all those who were with him, remove the foreign gods which are among you, and purify yourself, and change your garments, and let us arise and go to Bethel. And I will make an altar to God, who answered me on the day of my distress, and has been with me wherever I've gone. So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods which they had, and the rings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the oak which was near Shechem. So this whole time, not only had Laban had gods, his whole company apparently had idols and other indications of what would be foreign worship. This jewelry, for whatever reason, would be demarking them as, some type of worship. Now, as they journeyed, there was a great terror upon the cities which were around them, and they did not pursue the sons of Jacob. So Jacob came to Luz. So this is a huge number of people and flocks and herds that are traveling, and they're tenting at night, and they're moving forward. And the people in the land basically are intimidated by this, which is in the land of Canaan, and all the people who were with him. Then he built an altar there, and called the place El Bethel, because there God had revealed himself to him when he fled from his brother. Now Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died and was buried below Bethel under an oak, the name Alav Beklah. Okay, so now we get into verse 9 and 10. Now God appeared to Israel. Then God appeared to Jacob again when he came from Paddan Aram, and he blessed him. And God said to him, your name is Jacob. You shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel shall be your name. So he called him Israel. And God said to him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a multitude of nations shall come from you, and kings shall come from you. And the land which I give to you, which I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I will give to you, and I will give the land to your descendants after you. Then God went up from him at that place where he had spoken to him. So Jacob set up a memorial stone in that place where he'd spoken to him, a memorial stone, and he poured out a drink offering on it, and he poured oil on it, and Jacob named the place where God had spoken to him Bethel. So he basically is getting the same promise in its totality that Abraham got. The land, the blessing, and all that. And so Abraham got it, Isaac got it, and now Jacob is getting it directly from God. They journeyed on from Bethel, and when they were still a distance to go to Ephrath, Rachel began to give birth. She suffered severe difficulties in her labor, and when she was suffering severe difficulties in her labor, the midwife said to her, do not fear, you have another son. And it came about, as her soul was departing, for she died, she named him Ben-Oni, but his father called him Benjamin. Ben is typically just son. So, son of my sorrow is what Rachel calls him. And Jacob, the first time he renames any of his children is in this case. And he names him Benjamin, which would be son of the right hand, or son of the south, or son of my old age. one of those distinctions. So Rachel declares, son of sorrow. Jacob, or Israel says, son of my old age, as it were. Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrath. And Jacob set up a memorial stone over her grave. That is the memorial stone on which Rachel's grave to this day. Then Israel journeyed on and pitched his tent beyond the tower of the elder. So the next section here gets into the sons of Israel. We're not going to go there. We're primarily focused on Jacob. And so chapter 36, mostly about Esau, so we can skip that. What's going to happen is we're going to find ourselves shooting through and finding what happens shortly hereafter is the story changes significantly, and we find a lot about Joseph and the brothers. And so we want to focus back on Jacob. So chapter 37, verse 1, Jacob lived in the land where his father had lived as a stranger in the land of Canaan. These are the records of the generations of Jacob. So 37 follows with this listing. Then verse 31 of chapter 37, so they took Joseph's tunic, slaughtered a male goat, and dipped the tunic in blood, and they sent the multicolored tunic and brought it to their father and said, we found this, please examine it and see whether it's your son's tunic or not. Then he examined it and said, it is my son's tunic, a vicious animal has devoured him. Joseph had surely been torn to pieces, so Jacob tore his clothes, put on a sackcloth garment over his waist, and mourned for his son many days. Then all his sons and daughters got up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, and he said, surely I will go down to Sheol in mourning for my son. So his father wept for him. It's brothers. I mean, come on, people.
Yeah, but look at the dysfunction and the favoritism and all that went on. Like, well, duh. I mean, it makes sense when you see how all the kids were treated except Joseph and Benjamin.
Yeah, they were clearly the favorite. So now we can actually jump to 42, chapter 42, because the intervening things are all about Joseph and his experiences in Egypt. Now Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt, and Jacob said to his sons, why are you staring at one another? He said, look, I have heard that there's grain in Egypt. Go down and buy some for us from that place so that we may live and not die. So he's still the patriarch. He's still telling his sons what to do, how to resolve this desperate situation of famine. And so if we jump to 43 then, now the famine was severe in the land, so it came about when they were finishing eating the grain which they had brought from Egypt, that their father said to them, go back and buy us a little food. Judah said to him, however, saying, the men sternly warned us, you shall not go down to buy you food, but if you do not send him, we will not go. Sorry, will somebody read 43, 1 through 6?
Now the famine was severe in the land, and when they had eaten the grain that they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, go again, buy us a little food. But Judah said to him, the man solemnly warned us, saying, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you will send our brother with us, we will go down and buy you food. But if you will not send him, we will not go down, for the man said to us, you shall not see my face unless your brother is with you. Israel said, why did you treat me so badly as to tell the man that you had another brother?
Yeah. Verse 11, then the father Israel said to them, if it must be so, then do this. Take some of the best products of the land in your bags and carry down to the man a gift, a little balsam and a little honey, labdanum, resin, and myrrh, and pistachio nuts and almonds, and take double the money in your hand, and take back in your hand the money that was returned in the opening of your sacks. Perhaps it was a mistake. Take your brother also, and arise, return to the man, and may God Almighty grant you compassion in the sight of the man, so that he will release to you your other brother and Benjamin. As for me, I am bereaved. For my sons, I am bereaved. So he took this gift. So the men took this gift, and they took double the money in their hands, and Benjamin, and then they set out and went down to Egypt. So we can jump again to continue our tracking of Jacob down to chapter 45, verse 24. So he sent his brothers away, and they departed and said to him, do not quarrel on the journey. Then they went up from Egypt and came to the land of Canaan. You guys behave. To their father Jacob. And they told him, Joseph is alive. Indeed, he is ruler of all the land of Egypt. But he was stunned, and he did not believe them when they told him all the words Joseph had spoken to them, and when he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to carry him. Then the spirit of their father Jacob revived, and Israel said, it is enough. My son Joseph is still alive. I will go see him before I die. So it's coming around. This is how that 127 people end up going for the initial trip into Egypt, and then they become millions in the course of 400 years. Chapter 46, someone read 1 through 7, please.
So Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And God spoke to Israel in visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, here I am. Then he said, I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again, and Joseph's hand shall close your eyes. Then Jacob set out from Beersheba. The sons of Israel carried Jacob their father, their little ones and their wives, in the wagons that Pharaoh had sent to carry him. They also took their livestock and their goods which they had gained in the land of Canaan and came into Egypt. Jacob and all his offspring with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters. All his offspring he brought with him into Egypt.
Okay, now we can jump actually to chapter 46, verse 28. Somebody read 28 through 30, please.
And he sent Judah before him unto Joseph to direct his face unto Goshen. And they came into the land of Goshen, and Joseph made ready his chariot, and went up to meet Israel his father, to Goshen, and presented himself unto him. And he fell on his neck, and wept on his neck a good while. And Israel said to Joseph, now let me die, since I have seen thy face, because thou art yet alive. And Joseph said unto his brethren, and unto his father's house, I will go up and show Pharaoh, and say unto him, my brethren and my father's house, which were in the land of Canaan, are come unto me. And the men are shepherds, for their trade hath been to feed cattle, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have.
Okay. That was 46, 28 through 30. All right. 47, somebody read 7 through 12.
Then Joseph brought in Jacob his father, and stood him before Pharaoh, and Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Jacob, how many are the days of the years of your life? And Jacob said to Pharaoh, the days of the years of my sojourning are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and they have not attained the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their sojourn. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from the presence of Pharaoh. Then Joseph settled his father and his brothers and gave him a possession in the land of Egypt, in the best of the land, and in the land of
Ramses, yeah.
Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. And Joseph provided his father, his brother, and all his father's household with food according to the number of their dependents.
Okay, somebody read 29 of the same chapter through 31.
And when the time drew near that Israel must die, he called his son Joseph and said to him, If now I have found favor in your sight, put your hand under my thigh and promise to deal kindly and truly with me. Do not bury me in Egypt. Let me die with my fathers. Carry me out of Egypt and bury me into their burying place. He answered, I will do as you have said. And he said, Swear to me. And he swore to him. Then Israel bowed himself upon the head of his bed.
Okay, so we've seen that before. The oath taken with the hand under the leg. Don't know why that works, but it's apparently a binding oath. Chapter 48, 1 through 7. Someone, you got it?
Now it came about after these things that Joseph was told, Behold, your father is sick. So he took his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, and with him. And I told to Jacob, Behold, your son Joseph has come to you. Israel collected his strength and sat up in the bed. Then Jacob said to Joseph, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and blessed me. And he said to me, Behold, I will make you fruitful and numerous. I'll make you a multitude of peoples, and will give this land to your descendants after you as an everlasting possession. Now your 2 sons who were born to you in the land of Egypt before I came to you in Egypt are mine. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine, as Reuben and Simeon are. Their children that you fathered after them shall be yours. They shall be called by the names of their brothers in their inheritance. As for me, I came from Padan. Rachel died to my sorrow in the land of Canaan on the journey, when there was still some distance to go to Ephrath. I buried her there on the way to Ephrath. That's Bethlehem.
So he's disclosing to Joseph what happened to his mother, essentially. That, okay, this is what occurred. 48, 8 through 15. Somebody read that.
When Israel saw the sons of Joseph, he asked, Who are these? They are the sons God has given me here. Joseph said to his father. Then Israel said, Bring them to me so I may bless them. So Israel's eyes were failing because of old age. He could hardly see. So Joseph brought them, his sons, close to him, and his father kissed them and embraced them. Israel said to Joseph, I never expected to see your face again, and now God has allowed me to see your children too. And Joseph removed them from Israel's knees and bowed down with his face to the ground. Is that it?
15.
Then Joseph took both of them, Ephraim on his right towards Israel's left hand, and Manasseh on his left towards Israel's right hand. And he brought them close to him. But Israel reached out his right hand and put it on Ephraim's head. Though he was the younger, and crossed his arms, he put his left hand on Manasseh's head. Huh?
Yeah. The
Classic.
Even though Manasseh was the firstborn.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Then Joseph said it, blessed and said, May God, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day.
Okay, from the angel who has redeemed me from all evil, bless the Lord. So he goes on for a blessing there, and then in chapter 49, Jacob summoned his sons and said, Assemble yourselves so that I may tell you what will happen to you in the days that come. And so essentially he gives them each, gather and listen, the sons of Jacob. Listen to Israel and Reuben, you are my firstborn. So he goes through and basically tells them, and the beginning of my strength, preeminent in dignity and preeminent in power, uncontrollable as water, and you shall not have preeminence because you went up to your father's bed, and you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Simeon and Levi are brothers. Their swords are implements of violence. May my soul enter their whole counsel. So he has these, not real blessings, but sort of predictions about what's to come in these men's lives. And he goes right on through, all the way through the end of surpass the blessings. Chapter or verse 27. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he devours the prey, and in the evening he divides the spoils. And these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is what their father said to them when he blessed them. He blessed them, everyone, with a blessing appropriate to him. So he knew the boys, and he basically blessed each one. Somebody read 29 through 33, please.
And he charged them and said unto them, I am to be gathered unto my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephraim and Hittite. In the cave that is in the field of Machpelah or whatever,
Yep.
which is before Mamre in the land of Canaan, which Abram bought with the field Ephraim the Hittite for a possession of burying place. There they buried Abram and Sarah his wife. They buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife, and they buried Leah. The purchase of the field and of the cave is therein was from the children of Heth. How far do you want me to go?
That'll do. Okay, so he's basically putting the burden on them to, in chapter 50, verse 1, then Joseph fell on his father's face and wept over him and kissed him. Joseph commanded his servants, the physicians, to embalm his father. So the physicians embalmed Israel. Now 40 days were required for it, for such was the period required for embalming, and the Egyptians wept for him 70 days. When the days of mourning were past, Joseph spoke to the household of Pharaoh, saying, If now I found favor in your sight, please speak to Pharaoh, saying, My father made me swear, behold, I'm about to die in my grave, which I dug myself in the land of Canaan. There you shall bury me. Now then, please let me go up to bury my father. Then I will return. Go up to bury your father. He made you swear. Okay, that's the story of Jacob. So thank you all.